topic is cells in parallel. Here we have to consider two cells. The two cells are connected in parallel. The first cell has the EMF E1 and internal resistance R1. The second cell has the EMF E2 and internal resistance R2. If two cells are connected in parallel, the potential difference across the cells are same, but the current is different. Let I1 be the current through the first cell and I2 be the current through the second cell. I is the total current. So first we have to write the potential difference across the terminals of the first cell. So here we can write V is equal to E1 minus I1 into R1. From this equation we can write I1 R1 which is equal to E1 minus V. Then we can write I1 is equal to E1 minus V by R1. Can take this is equation number 1. Next we have to write the potential difference across the terminals of the second cell. That is V is equal to E2 minus I2 into R2. Then we can write I2 R2 is equal to E2 minus V. Then we can write I2 is equal to E2 minus V by R2. Next we have to calculate the total current. Total current I is equal to I1 plus I2. Here I1 is E1 minus V by R1 plus E2 minus V by R2. If we take LCM, you will get R1 into R2. Can multiply R2 into E1 minus V plus R1 into E2 minus V. When you cross multiply here, you will get I into R1 R2 which is equal to R2 into E1 minus R2 into V plus R1 into E2 minus R1 into V. The same equation we can write E1 R2 plus E2 R1. Then in both the terms here minus V as common. Then we can write minus V into R1 plus R2. The same equation we can write V into R1 plus R2 which is equal to E1 R2 plus E2 R1, and here our term is I into R1 R2. When it comes this side it is minus I into R1 into R2. Next, from this equation we can write the potential difference V is equal to E1 R2 plus E2 R1 minus I into R1 R2 the whole divided by R1 plus R2. This is the formula used to calculate the potential difference across the terminals of the two cells. The same equation we can write here as V is equal to E1 R2 plus E2 R1 minus I into R1 R2. Then can write divided by R1 plus R2. Here it is by R1 plus R2. So this term is said to be the equivalent EMF minus I into, here it is said to be R equivalent. If we need to calculate the ratio of E equivalent by R equivalent, we can write, here it is E1 R2 plus E2 R1, the whole divided by R1 plus R2 by, here it is R1 R2 by R1 plus R2. This R1 plus R2, R1 plus R2 cancel. Then we can write the same equation as E1 R2 by R1 R2 plus E2 R1 by R1 R2. Here R2 R2 cancel, here R1 R1 cancel. So that we can write here the term as E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2. If n cells are connected in parallel, we can write the same equation as E1 by R1 plus E2 by R2 plus etc. to En by Rn.
If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. See you next class.